Hello everybody, this is Kim with Kim's Vinyl Expressions. Today we're going to be stitching out an In the Hoop doggy toy blanket by Designs by Juju. This design is done in 2 hoopings. It's pretty easy, and this is what my finished design looks like. These are flaps. I double-sided different fabrics. I did minky on the back, and I did cotton on the front, and the same with the doggy. I had different fabric for the ears, the spot on the face, the little bandana, and I used minky for the background and the back as well, just in case you want to give it to an infant or a young or a baby. It'll be really soft for them. And for the face, I didn't use cotton. I actually used fleece. I like fleece better for certain things, and it's a lot softer too. Where sometimes cotton could be a little, I don't know, depends. Sometimes a little rough. I don't think this one is 100% cotton, but so that's what this design is. It is available in 3 hoop sizes, but for this demonstration, I'm going to do my 6x10. So what you need for this design, oh, also forgot to show you, at the end there will be an opening. I just left it I left mine open to show you. So if you want to stuff it, put a little bit of stuffing in there, you can. If you want to put some of the crinkly paper in there, you can, or you can just leave it flat, whichever you decide to do. And the same with the flaps. You can stuff them if you'd like, but I left mine flat. So what you'll need is a medium weight stabilizer and obviously your hoop. I'm going to show that. And whatever fabrics you're going to use, I have a whole bunch of fabrics here. They are not pre-cut. The directions did not have pre-cut sizes in there. So I'm just going to use my judgment. I normally don't pre-cut my fabrics anyway. But that's what we're going to do. So let's get started. We're going to start with the flaps first, and the flaps are only done in one step. That's it. And we'll go over to the machine and get started. So I just wanted to show you that the design is just 1 step, and it takes about approximately, depending on your machine, my machine it says 6 minutes, but it's done in less time. Okay, just to show you what I did for the first step, since there was no placement stitch, I wasn't sure how big the actual flaps were. So I just did a partial stitch out of the first one, just so I can get an idea on my size, and then I cut my fabric. Okay, so what you want to do, if you choose to do that, that's up to you. If not, it is, like I said, it's just 1 step. So what you're going to do is whatever fabric you're going to use, you're going to put the 2 right sides together, like so. And you're just going to cover that. Make sure I'm all covered. And then I'm going to pin this down because I don't want it to move when it starts stitching. I never use adhesive spray. I was told a long time ago not to because it can ruin the machine. Something about the needle getting the adhesive on it and going into the bobbin case. I don't know. I was told all this different stuff here about that. So I don't use adhesive spray any longer. I had a big problem with an old machine, and they told me it was because of the adhesive spray. But I really don't know, so I just choose not to use it. So went ahead and pinned this up, and I'm going to put it on the machine and stitch out the first stitch, the first step and the only step for this, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we have the flaps stitched out, and it was just 1 step. I'm gonna go ahead and take this out of my hoop. take my pins out. Then I'm gonna take all the stabilizer off. So there's 4 flaps. So you want to make sure that you get all whatever stabilizer you can off. Some people I know, when they make items that they have to turn inside out, sometimes they choose to leave the stabilizer in there depending on what design it is. I don't. But so we got the stabilizer out. I'm not going to worry about that because that'll just come out when I cut. So I'm just going to do this first. Just going to separate them. And I don't want to get too close to the stitching. I try to do it right in the middle. Okay, so now we have our 4 flaps. So now what I'm going to do, and this is going to be a little hard for me because my thumb is, well, let me take this off. I have a lot of swelling in my thumb and it's hard for me to use scissors. So I bought these scissors where I don't have to put it in my thumb, but they don't cut all that great. I thought they would, but let me try. Oh, well, maybe it was just the other material that I was cutting. Well, these do cut better. And you want to just leave, you know, some on the sides for a seam allowance. You don't want to go too close to the stitching because you don't want it to, you don't want to hit it by accident, and then it's going to come open. And then I'll just take that off there. I do try to do a little closer to the top, so when I turn it, I make sure it all comes unturned. And I don't think I need much from that side. And I don't really care what it looks like because it's going to be on the inside anyway. I just don't want too much. This little bit of stabilizer, it's up to you if you want to remove it or not. My stabilizer is pretty thin, it's perforated, so usually comes off. I can rip it kind of easy, but I'm not going to take it all out. If there's a lot, I will, but okay. So now that we got this cut, let me just try get that off. Yeah, see, that's coming easy for me, but depending on what type of stabilizer you're using, may be a little harder. I know some tearaways are a little harder to rip depending on how thick they are. Okay, so I'm fine with that. I mean, it's going to be inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these right side out. I start it like that when I can, and then I just take a chopstick and just pull it down through. And then make sure my tops are out, my sides, and then just pull that down. And you're going to do this for all 4 of them. And then I iron them so I make sure that they're straight. But that's that. So now you just want to do it for all 4 of these. Okay, next we're going to start on the actual dog. The first step, there's 18 steps to this. And it's about a little under 5,400 stitches. The first step is going to be a placement stitch for the fabric, and then you're going to lay your fabric on top of it and pin it down. So I already did my placement stitch. I already tacked down the fabric that I'm going to use for the first step, which is the back part of the dog, which would be all back there. And when you do that, the second step is going to do the placement for the ears, and that's what I'm going to stitch out now. Okay, so now that we have the placement stitch for the ears, whatever fabric you're going to use for your ears, you're going to lay over this. So I'm just going to put this over here, make sure it's covering. And good thing is, if you have scraps, you could use scraps for this design, unless there's certain pattern fabric that you want. But I'm going to tack these down. Sometimes I would just hold it and not tack it down, but the minky is kind of slippery, so I don't want my fabric to slide. If it'll go through. There we go. So now that we have this tacked down, I'm going to put it back on the machine and stitch out the ears. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put this on the machine and stitch out the ears. Okay, we have the ears stitched out, and what we'll do now, we're going to cut the excess fabric off. I'm going to take my pins out now. I'm going to cut the excess fabric off so we can do the stitching around the ears. I'm going to cut this in half. Well, no, because I can still use... I just try to get a chunk of this off first. It makes it a little easier for me. I try to keep as much scraps as I can because I do a lot of small things too. So I have a bucket load full of scraps. All right, so we're just going to go around here. Be careful not to nick the stitching, but you want to go as close to the stitching as you can. If you nick one, it's fine. It's not going to hurt the design because we're going to do another stitching over this when we're done. And then I usually check it when I'm done if I think I have a little too much fabric, where I think it's not, where it's not going to cover it. I got to trim it a little more. That's one. I think I'll just do a little more here. It's not, the next step isn't going to do a satin stitch. It's just going to do a zigzag stitch all around. So I want to make sure my fabrics are good. Keep moving my thing. Okay. My hoop is bigger than my space right here, so I keep hitting my camera tripod. Okay. So I'll just start in a weird spot. Try to get a little closer than I did on the other one. These are my favorite scissors. Best scissors I've ever had. Gonna get me another pair one day. Just a little expensive right now. But these are very, very good scissors. Especially for doing applique. I'm a lefty. I cut a little funny sometimes, so don't laugh at me. All right. I think we're good for the most part. Wasn't sure about those. Okay, so now that we cut out the excess fabric around the ears, we're going to go ahead and put this back in the machine, and it's going to do a zigzag stitch all around. Okay, step 5 is going to be the placement stitch of the head and body, which will be around here. So you're going to do the placement stitch, and then the fabric that you're going to use for the body, you're going to lay on top of the placement stitch, and then step 6 will tack that down. Okay, so now that we have the body and the head tacked down, we're going to cut the excess fabric from around it. And for the fabric, I used felt, not felt, oh my God, my mind just went blank. Fleece. I use fleece. When I make things for like babies or little kids, I try to use materials that are relatively soft. And again, you just want to cut as close to the stitching as you can. I hope you guys don't mind that I bypass the actual stitching, because stitching, I don't see a need to watch it, and it makes the videos a lot longer. So I just choose to bypass the stitching and make the videos smaller. So you're not sitting watching the video for a long time, because I'm sure if I recorded the stitching, the video would probably be well over an hour, knowing how long it takes me to do these. So I hope y'all just appreciate that. I know sometimes I'll watch videos on YouTube or wherever, and some stuff I just bypass. Okay, so we have the body and the head. The excess fabric removed. Let me just fix this. Okay, so the next step, what we're going to do is going to be the placement stitch for the patch that goes right here around the eye. And then put your fabric, whatever fabric you're going to use for the patch. After you do the placement stitch, put the fabric over it, and then do the tack down, just like we did with this. Okay, so now that we have the spot tacked down, we're gonna, excuse me, we're gonna cut and remove the excess fabric. And again, just be careful not to hit any of the stitches. Ow. Okay, I'm just going to trim a little bit more of this. Okay, so went ahead and we have the spot now, so we're going to put this back on the machine, and the machine's going to do another zigzag stitch around the patch. Okay, step 10, which is here, we're going to do a zigzag stitch around the entire body, like we did on the ears and the spot, but it's just going to go around the entire body. Okay, so we did the zigzag around the entire body. And step 11 and 12 is going to be the eyes and the nose. Step 11, eyes and nose. Okay, for the next step, we're going to do the placement stitch for the doggy bandana. It's going to go right here. And we'll go ahead and do the placement stitch. Excuse me. Do the placement stitch, put the fabric on top of it, and then tack it down, just like we've been doing everything else. Okay, now that we have the bandana tacked down, we're going to go ahead and remove the extra fabric. And again, just cut as close to the stitching as you can. We're going to go over it with a zigzag stitch like we did on the other applique. Keep a lint brush here because sometimes I have fabrics that fray when I cut them. So I just get the excess of that off. And again, I'm just cutting the little longer pieces so it don't stick out of the zigzag stitching. Okay, so now that we got that excess cut off, we're going to go ahead and put it back in the machine and do a zigzag stitch all the way around. Okay, now for the fun part. We're going to do 4 placement stitches for the flaps that we sewed out in the beginning, because then we're going to attach them. So we're going to do the placement stitches. They'll be like around here, but we'll go ahead and stitch that out and then show you how to attach the flaps. Okay, so now that we have the placement stitches for the flaps, I know you really can't see them much here, but there's one here, there, they're in all 4 corners, there, and there. So what you want to do, depending on how you made your flaps, like I did mine with 2 different materials. So I want this to be the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the right side of the fabric down. And then you're going to want to tape these over the placement stitches. And what I usually do, like here's the opening where the stitches stopped. I usually do it a little right above that. So we'll do it like right there. And I try to make sure it's right in the middle. And then, where's my tape? And then I'm going to tape it down. You can use painter's tape, masking tape. I use washi tape. I usually buy them when they're on clearance, and I've gotten like tons of rolls from Walmart for like 50 cents a roll. So I use these. But anyway, so we're going to tape, I'm going to tape this down like so. And the one thing I want to mention and it's only because I learned that way. If your machine has the option to lift the presser foot, like make it a little higher, I suggest to go ahead and do that. A long time ago, when I was really doing a lot of in the hoop stuff and things like this, that I didn't want the machine to tear up, I didn't know that I was able to lift my embroidery foot. And this is when I first started doing embroidery, really. And it tore like my whole design up. So this is a little thicker, so I'm going to raise my presser foot some before I start stitching it. But I want to make sure that this is kind of centered like that. Put that down, and then one more. Okay. Okay, and tape that down. Now, what I am going to do is I am going to fold these in like that, because I don't want my machine trying to grab these when it's trying to get these down. So I'm just going to do this. Just fold them, and I'm going to put tape right over it. But I'm going to use my masking tape for that. It's a little stronger. Okay, and then I'll do a little piece here to hold it. Make sure it stays. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and put this back on the machine. And like I said, I have a Brother 1600. So to do these, if you have that machine, I put my presser foot on 3.5, and that gets it right over this hump, so it doesn't tear it up as it's trying to stitch it down. But we're going to go ahead and put this back in the machine and stitch down the flaps. Okay, so we tack down the flaps. I'm just going to take this tape off here. I like to take whatever tape and stuff I can off while I can. Okay. And I'm going to leave this just like that. I'll make sure it's not in the way of the design, okay? And I can remove these pins now. I don't need these here. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we are going to put the backing piece on. This is going to be the last step, and I'm famous for using my scraps, so I'm going to do that. So it's a triangle, but I know it's going to fit. So I'll do it this way. I believe I did this earlier and it was fine. All right. Okay. So now this, I'm going to pin down so it does not move. And you want to make sure that whatever you're using for the backing, you want to put the right side down. This doesn't have a design on it, but that's the Minky. So I'm going to put that down, and I'm going to pin it down. try to pin as far down, far away from the design. Make sure it doesn't go into the design. Okay, so I'm going to do this one here. I know a lot of y'all use adhesive spray, but I don't. So I'm going to pin this last corner here. Oh, and the one thing I did want to mention is when I was doing the test one and also on the video, I keep having a problem with this part of the nose. And I'm not really sure if it's because of my stabilizer. I'm not really sure. But on this one, I had a problem also with the same exact spot. So all I did is I added a piece of additional stabilizer on the back. And it seemed once I did that, I didn't have any more problems. So I think for that part of the design, the nose, my stabilizer was a little too thin. So I had to add. So I just wanted to let you guys know that in case you have the same problem I did. But so we are pinned down. Going to put this back in the machine and run the final stitch. Okay, we are done with the final stitching. I'm going to take my pins out. And I actually put my presser foot on 4.0. And at the end of the last stitch, it goes back to the middle. And I couldn't even get this out. I had maybe a little too high. So depending on your machine, you probably just want to watch that. Okay, so I'll take this out. I know they sell magnetic frames hoops for my machine, but they're so expensive. I'd like to get those. Okay, so we're going to remove the stabilizer. I had this extra piece on here, so I want to get that off. Well, heck, this usually rips right for me. I'll just do... Okay. I want to make sure I got all that thicker stabilizer off. Okay. Now just rip all this. I hate tearing away stabilizer. It's the one thing I hate more than anything. and I don't know why. I think it because I'm so OCD that like I have to get every inch of it off, but I'm trying to get over that. Been that way for years. I don't know why, and I know that nobody's gonna see it because it's gonna be on the inside, but yet it's still what I do. See, I really like the perforated stabilizer because it's so much easier to tear. But for some projects, it's not good because it's too thin. And I forget that sometimes. And I think that's why I had to add that extra piece before, because there's so much around there. And because everything's going to be inside, I'm not going to worry about cutting the tails off the threads. So I don't need to clean all that up. Tedious. I think I just make it harder for me. But I'm leaving that for now. I mean, I'm leaving it. I'm not going to take any more out because I think that'll be just fine. And yet I'm still ripping. Okay. Throw all this in the garbage. All right, so now what we want to do, want to cut all around, all the excess fabric. Okay, and you see here, it was not sewn. It was not sewn all the way around because we have to have that opening. So what I am going to do, where's my... I'm just going to do this a little easier for me. My thumb is hurting today. Have a hard time using scissors lately. Okay. And you want to make sure you just leave some around the seam. Don't go too close. Oh, did I do it? Dang it. Okay. I made a boo-boo. I didn't realize what side I was on. So what I'm going to wind up doing with this, and it's not a big deal, because you can do that if you choose to as well, but I'll show you in a minute. I wasn't paying attention to which side I was cutting, so I did not leave a lot of material here to tuck in. So what I'm going to wind up doing is using fabric glue, and I'm going to glue it because I don't want to do the whole design again just for that, and it's not much of a big deal. But normally you would leave a little bit of extra fabric here so you can tuck it in like I did on this one, because you would just tuck the fabric in and then sew it around like a ladder stitch or something like that. But I did not do this here, and that was my mistake, but it does not make this useless. So now we're going to just go ahead and turn this right side out. And the opening is pretty big, so it shouldn't be a big problem to turn it. Okay. Just take the masking tape off. And the only time I really use masking tape is when there's stuff like this that we have to leave tape down so it doesn't get caught in the machine. I still have some scraps there, but I'll just move that all for now. Okay, so there is your finished design. So, like I said, with me, I have a little tiny bit here that I can tuck in, and I'll fix this up later. And I maybe could still sew it. So I'll either sew it or I'll use fabric glue on it, and either way it'll still get closed. So that was my fault. Okay, so, and this is your finished design. So I know these are pretty long. I'm not sure why they were that long, but I just did what the directions said and just do a knot. I did that on the other one. And you can, I mean, you can do what you want with that, but I just did these all the way around. And just straighten that out a little bit. And this one. And there you go. So that's what this looks like. And this is in this one is in the 6x10 hoop. I think there are two more sizes. I think a 5x7 and a 8x12. But my biggest hoop I have is a 6x10, so I couldn't make a bigger one. But there you go. Well, thank you for watching my video on the doggy toy blanket for Designs by Juju. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment on my video, subscribe to my channel. You can also find other tutorials at Designs by Juju's YouTube and mine as well. So if you have any questions, like I said, just comment on the video, or you can send me a private message on Facebook. I'm in the Design by Juju group. And hope everybody has a good day. Thanks.